Hey everyone, welcome back to Player One, Player Two Sports for our Week 2 predictions.
Before we get into it, make sure you guys go follow our Instagram and our Twitter. I'll be posting daily posts on there, and we'll also be posting weekly questions as well. This week's question is, do you think DK Metcalf is a top 10 receiver? Go ahead and comment down below. Let's get into it.
Now, Week 2 predictions are pretty hard to make because Week 1 does show you how the teams are in the regular season, but there's not much consistency to it, and they could be flukes or matchups, which makes Week 2 kind of hard to predict. But for the first game, we have Thursday Night Football, the Washington Football Team versus the New York Giants. Now, for this game, I have the football team taking it. I think that with the loss of Fitzmagic, it's going to be tough for that offense to stay as explosive. But they have Taylor Heineke, who I think is a pretty solid starter, and they have that amazing defense. They're coming off a loss to the Chargers, but it was a close game, and the Giants lost to the Broncos, who I think is actually a very, very easily comparable team to the football team with a great defense and an iffy offense. So I think the football team is going to take this one.
I also think it's going to be a really close game. I think losing Fitzpatrick is definitely going to be a huge part of, which way this game goes. I do think Heineke is a solid backup, though. I kind of feel like he's on the same level as Fitz, so I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a huge loss for Washington. But I also do have the Washington football team winning this game as well.
I mean, Taylor Heineke did almost beat the Bucs in the playoffs, so
And then they would have went on to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because they
how
beat
it works.
the winner. Yeah. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Houston Texans. Now, I will say the Texans surprised me.
The Texans are frisky,
They
man.
look weirdly good, but I think I'm going to have to take the Browns on this one. They almost beat the Chiefs. They probably should have won that game if it wasn't for a couple mistakes. But yeah, so I'll take the Browns on this one. I think they're a pretty solid team this year, and it's going to be tough to beat them.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Browns this game. The Browns look really solid. I think it was the first 3 quarters of the game on Sunday. I think they genuinely just gave the game away. I think if the Browns and the Chiefs play again, I think it will be a different story. But Houston did look surprisingly good. I think it might have been
Tyrod Taylor's that dude.
Yeah, he's the truth, man. He's the truth. But I do have the Browns winning this game.
Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, for this one, I think the Bills are going to take it. They had a rough start, but I think they're just getting the rust off of them. And Josh Allen didn't look too good last week's game, but I think he'll definitely start getting into motion and start getting the momentum flowing. And they're probably going to come in angry. They're probably going to be really pissed off. And the Dolphins did have a win last week, but it was an ugly win. I'll say that against Mac Jones, who looked great. So yeah, I'll go with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I'm a Dolphins fan, and I am dreading this week's game. Especially with Buffalo losing how they did. I think Josh Allen's going to easily throw for 350 yards.
He puts up like 500 on you guys.
Yeah, I'd expected. It was such an ugly win. I don't feel like we deserve that win. And apparently most of Dolphins Twitter believes that as well. But I think Buffalo comes in. I think Josh Allen gets back to where he was last season and absolutely tears it up.
Next up, we have the Denver Broncos versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars really disappointed week 1. They just looked terrible. They lost to a team that most people expected to go 0-17. And Trevor Lawrence just did not look like the guy week 1. But the Broncos came out and they beat the Giants pretty hard. They kind of put a whooping on them. So I'm going to take the Broncos here. I think they got a stellar defense. I think Teddy Bridgewater is, again, a solid quarterback who can make it work. The loss of Jerry Jeudy is rough, but they have other weapons on that team, and I think they'll come out with the win.
Yeah, I agree as well. Unless Trevor Lawrence could really step up his play, and that offensive line steps up their play,
and that defense,
and and Urban Meyer just does better.
And there's been reports that Urban Meyer is unhinged in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but God, it's gonna be tough for the Jaguars to win this game. I think Teddy Bridgewater actually played very well in week one's game. His completion percentage, did you see it? It was insane.
No, I didn't see it.
But yeah, I think the Broncos win this one.
All right, next up we got the New England Patriots versus the New York Jets. Now for this one, I do have the Patriots winning. I think they looked great against the Dolphins. I think they easily could have won that game, but the Dolphins defense really stopped them at the end there, and kind of bailed out the offense. So I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to keep momentum going. I think Mac Jones is going to continue to get more comfortable in the NFL, as opposed to the Jets, where Zach Wilson didn't look great. But also you got to remember he didn't have a great O-line. He was pressured on a lot of his.
Mekhi Becton got hurt.
Mekhi Becton's injured now, so I think just the Patriots are a more solid team, and I think I have them taking this one.
You know what's funny is Mac Jones looked great week 1. He was throwing a lot of short passes, but then you saw those like intermediate to deep routes that he was throwing, and he was lasering them downfield.
Just
I think he only gets
missile down the field.
Yeah, and I think as more comfortable as he gets in the offense, I think that team sky's the limit for him. I do have the Patriots winning this game.
Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think the Steelers are going to take this one. They beat a dominant team in the Bills and made them look stagnant on offense, which was pretty crazy. And I just don't think the Raiders are going to have what it takes to take down the Steelers right now. With how good their defense is, their offense doesn't even have to perform very well to win games. So I think I think the Steelers are going to take this one. I think. Again, that last game proved how great of a coach Mike Tomlin is, and I don't know what the consensus is on John Gruden, but I think he's very overhyped, and I think if he wasn't such a big name, he probably would have been fired a while ago. So yeah, I have the Steelers winning this game.
I also have the Steelers. If the Steelers didn't come out and play like how they played in week 1, it was probably a closer game. Let's say I'd probably have the Raiders winning this game. But that defense just looks so good. And you know, even Juju Smith-Schuster came up clutch, and I have no faith in those receivers, in my personal opinion. But, you know, that Raiders team is probably the most average team in the league, and I think the Steelers definitely showed how good they can be, especially on defense.
Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I have the Chiefs winning this one. If it wasn't for all those injuries that the Ravens have sustained, I think this would be a closer game. But for right now, I think the Chiefs are looking dominant. They're in midseason form. They were able to come back from a 12-point deficit on the Browns. So I think they're going to keep that momentum flowing. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be virtually unstoppable now.
Oh yeah,
because they lost Marlon Humphrey and they don't have any really. They really lost almost every running back. They had to keep signing people. So I think the Chiefs are going to win this one.
I don't know what Tyrann Matthews. He was inactive yesterday. I don't know what his injury was, but I'm assuming he'll play this coming week. I definitely think the Chiefs win this game. They're just going to drop everyone back in coverage and pretty much play zone, and is my guess. I don't think the Ravens have enough going for them as far as like players that can really make a difference, especially against the Chiefs, to really hold the Chiefs down. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, though, but I do have the Chiefs winning this one.
Right, next up, we have the Chicago Bears versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals are coming off a win against the really highly talked about Vikings, which was quite the surprise for us. I think we had the Vikings taking that, but the Bears. You know what? If you would have asked me before week 1 who would have won, I would have said the Bears. But we were actually at the Rams game, and, God, the secondary looks awful, so they would have to really step it up. The offense just can't seem to put points on the board, even though they've been moving the ball a lot better. I think it really depends on if Justin Fields comes out and opens up that offense to a lot more possibilities. But if they start Andy Dalton, and I think for right now, I'm going to say the Cincinnati Bengals take that game. The secondary just looked so terrible against the Rams. They were letting up big shots and just really seemed like they weren't even trying out there. So I'm going to take the Bengals.
I have the Bears winning this game. I think it's definitely going to be a battle of the offenses, not necessarily in a good way. I do think that the Bengals came out and they shocked me 100% because I didn't think Jamar Chase was going to come out there and be a beast.
Yeah, it looks like he learned how to catch footballs that don't have stripes on them.
Yeah.
It looks like he picked it up really easily.
But yeah, I think if the Bengals get out to like a 10-point lead, I could hear those Bears fans chanting, "We want Fields," and I think Fields goes in, and I think it's a completely different ball game from that point forth.
I think if we do put Justin Fields out there and start him, I think he could lead the Bears to a comeback. Only if he starts. I think we lose if Dalton plays. That's my prediction. But I think if Justin Fields comes out there, I think he opens up the offense, becomes way more explosive, and we could probably put up more points than they could.
So who do you have winning this game?
The Bengals.
All right, I'm Bears.
I think Justin Fields could really win this game. So who do you have winning? The Cincinnati Bengals. All right, next up we have the Los Angeles Rams versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Indianapolis Colts didn't look bad. Carson Wentz actually looked surprisingly good against the Seahawks. But the Rams looked so unstoppable with Matt Stafford as their QB. They were able to fire shots down the field. They had a great running game. Their defense was making stops all game pretty much. So I think the Rams are going to take this one for sure. They're definitely looking like Super Bowl contenders like we had them predicted to be. So, yeah, I think the Rams take this one and start off in a 2-0 record.
I also think the Rams win this game. They just look way too explosive for most teams to handle. I think the Colts offense looked better because they were going up against the Seahawks defense, and I don't think the Seahawks defense is really that good. But, oh, my God, that Rams offense is insane. Even, who is it, Van Jefferson?
Van Jefferson.
A person I'd never heard of goes out and catches a 75-yard
touchdown.
Yeah.
And not to mention, they're not even rocking with Cam Akers. Like they were rocking with some no-name
Darnell Henderson.
He was out there just putting up yards. So next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, this one is hard to predict because the Chargers looked great against the football team's defense, and the Cowboys were surprisingly close to beating the Bucs. We thought it was going to be a blowout, but apparently not. Apparently Dak's here to play. Zeke didn't play. I'm so sorry if you started him on fantasy. I did, and I know I regret it. But maybe he comes out and he's able to actually put up some yards. For this game, I think I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys. They looked pretty legit against the Bucs, and I think it's going to be tough to beat them.
I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys as well. If they let Dak throw it 45 times or whatever he threw, I don't think that Charger defense is going to stop him. I do think it's going to be a relatively close game. I think Justin Herbert keeps him in that game, especially with the weapons. Even Jalen Guyton stepped up on the Chargers. Austin Eckler looked good out there. I think the one big problem with the Cowboys is definitely their use of Zeke. Because I don't know, from what we saw, I don't know if Zeke is going to be a weapon on this team, or they just simply...
I just don't know if Zeke's running back one. He seems like fullback one, and Tony Pollard seems like running back one.
Yeah.
I will say Zeke actually did set some pretty important blocks throughout that game, allowing Dak to have time in the pocket. But, I think maybe they open up the run game this week and they take that win. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans versus the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this one's tough because the Titans looked terrible against the Cardinals, while the Seahawks looked phenomenal against the Colts. Playoff or MVP Russ starting his 6-week campaign. So I think it's a tough call because the Titans have so much. How do I say this? Have so much upside. Potential. Yeah, they have such a big upside, but the Seahawks come out looking great. I'm going to take the Seahawks on this one. It's tough to say that because the Cardinals' defense was able to stop the Titans, and I don't think the Seahawks' defense is remotely close to putting up that performance. So it's tough for me to say it, but with the way the Titans looked last week, I think the Seahawks could win this one.
Yeah, the last two performances we've seen from the Titans, like in the playoffs and in week one, was both just stop the run, and that's pretty much it for the Titans. But I don't think the Seahawks defense is going to stop the run, and I have the Titans winning this game. As long as Tannehill can lean on that run, that pass game will open up, and I think they'll look back to form this week.
Next up, we have the 49ers against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this one is tough because the 49ers, they came out dominant against the Lions, but they almost lost.
They almost blew the game.
Yeah, the Eagles came out against the Falcons and looked like a good team playing against a mediocre team. You know what? I'm going to change my mind on this on the spot. I think the Eagles are going to take this one. They looked phenomenal out there. Jalen Hurts looked like the dude. Devontae Smith got a touchdown, which was pretty nice. They were able to stop that should have been dominant offense and hold them to what was it, like one score?
It was like 6 points.
Yeah, 6 points. So I think the Eagles are going to take it, and I'm probably going to eat my words, but I believe, dude.
Yeah.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah.
Jalen going to make them hurt. Am I right?
This one's a tough one to choose because God, the Lions almost came back.
Yeah, they were frisky.
Yeah, Jared Goff had almost 400 yards passing, and that's a bad sign for your defense. If Jared Goff, of all people, can throw roughly 400 yards on you,
the guy, like, if you allow a guy who in the Rams offense couldn't throw more than 10 yards every play to put up that many yards on you on the Lions. it's tough to say you're going to win a lot of games. But again, it's week 1. Maybe it was just the matchup. Maybe it was rust. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm going to go ahead and say it was the defense's fault. That's the point I'm going to make. Not like the offense couldn't hold the ball or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and say the 49ers win this game.
Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, this one is another tough one to call. The Saints looked absolutely dominant,
just
against
phenomenal.
The bottom of the barrel Packers. You know, they're just the worst team in the league. But again, that could just be a fluke. You don't know if it's week 1. You don't know if Aaron Rodgers was just phoning it in or he just didn't care about that win. There could have been a ton of motives for him not playing that well. So this one's tough. Jameis Winston did put up 5 touchdowns, which is insane. But then again, the Panthers looked like a pretty solid team against the Jets. They kind of fell off towards the end of the game, but they were off to a hot start. I think the Saints take this one because I'm a firm believer that Jameis Winston is that guy, and I think that they're going to surprise a lot of people this year.
I also think Jameis Winston's going to come out and light it up. I have the Saints winning this game. God, I can't see the Panthers really keeping up with them for long, especially with I'm not a big Jameis Winston fan. Yeah. I'm a Jameis Winston believer now. He definitely made me believe.
He made me believe when he came in the league.
Yeah,
I knew once he got that LASIK surgery.
I knew when
he ate that W, and now it's in him. He has W's in him for days.
He just lives with that.
Yeah, once post LASIK, Jameis Winston hits the field, you know it's game over. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I think the Buccaneers are going to take this game and absolutely stomp out the Falcons.
You'll make this your lock of the week?
I think this is going to be my lock of the week. I don't know, man. The Eagles looked pretty good. No, I'm going to take the Bucs on this one, and they're just such a dominant team, and they really kept it up from last year. Last year, they just seemed to getting better and better every game, and now it seems like they're again getting better. They beat the Cowboys, and they made mistakes throughout that game that would have cost other teams the game, but they came out and they still won. So I'm gonna go with the Bucs.
I'm gonna go with the Bucs too, but I think the Falcons get out to a 28-3 lead.
Yeah.
Right, and then Brady's head goes into his lap, and he comes out and puts up points. No, I'm kidding. But I think the Bucs offense or the Bucs team in general, I don't see any weak spots. I can see them easily taking care of the Falcons, so I got the Bucs.
Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Vikings lost to the Bengals, who we had as just not a good team this year, while the Cardinals just put a whooping on the Titans. I'm going to take the Cardinals on this one. They looked phenomenal. They looked like they didn't have any weak points last week. Kyler Murray was putting on a show, looking like an MVP candidate out there. Their defense, Chandler Jones was just an absolute dog out there. So I'm definitely going to take the Cardinals on this one. I think the Vikings maybe get the ball rolling a bit and start looking better, but I think they lose this game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think
so. Then cut it off there.
Okay. I had Kyler Murray as a fringe top 10 quarterback, and then Sunday happened, and he is just going to break through this year. I think he's definitely looking like an MVP candidate. Through 1 week. I'll give him that. But definitely the Cardinals win this game.
Next up, we have the Monday night game. We have the Detroit Lions taking on the Green Bay Packers. Now, this one is our zany pick of the week because we're taking the Lions.
Yeah, we're taking the Lions.
They look frisky this year.
Jared Goff is the guy.
And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to throw every game until he gets traded. And I don't think Jordan Love is going to come out and light it up. So I'm going to take the Lions. Dan Campbell, dude, he's creating a culture there.
Dan Campbell, Tyrell Williams.
Yeah.
Was the
Penei Sewell and his short little arms.
His little T-Rex arms. I think they take it this week.
They take it. That's our picks for week 2. I hope you enjoy. We'll see you next week with our week 3 picks. Have a great time. Enjoy some football. That's what Sunday's all about.